Did you know that Stalin wasn't his real name? It was a carefully chosen moniker, meaning man of steel, reflecting the image he wanted to project: strong, unyielding, and powerful. This name change speaks volumes about the man who would become the dictator of the Soviet Union for over 3 decades. His birth name, Joseph Bessarionis Yukishvili, held no such metallic resonance, no such air of unbending strength. Stalin understood the power of image, a power he would wield ruthlessly throughout his rule. This essay delves into the life and times of Joseph Stalin, a figure both fascinating and terrifying. We will explore his journey from a humble background to the pinnacle of power. We will examine his brutal policies, his iron-fisted leadership, and his lasting impact on Russia and the world. Stalin's story is not one of a benevolent leader. It is a story of ambition, ruthlessness, and unimaginable human suffering inflicted in the name of ideology. It is a story that, even decades after his death, continues to provoke debate and demands to be understood. Born in the small town of Gori, Georgia in 1878, Stalin's early life was far removed from the halls of power he would one day occupy. His father, a cobbler, was a harsh man, prone to drunken violence. Young Iosib, small for his age and disfigured by a childhood accident, found solace in books and the teachings of the Russian Orthodox Church.
However, my religious fervor soon gave way to revolutionary zeal. I encountered Marxist ideas while studying at a seminary in Tbilisi and quickly became a fervent believer in the overthrow of the Tsarist regime. Expelled from the seminary for my political activities, I joined the burgeoning Bolshevik movement, embracing a life of underground activism, propaganda, and bank robberies to fund the cause.
This period of his life was instrumental in shaping Stalin's worldview. He witnessed firsthand the poverty and inequality that plagued Tsarist Russia. He also developed a taste for clandestine operations and the ruthless tactics that would come to define his rule. Following the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, Stalin's organizational skills and unwavering commitment to the cause propelled him through the ranks of the Communist Party. While figures like Lenin and Trotsky captivated the masses with their oratory and revolutionary zeal, Stalin quietly consolidated his power behind the scenes.
Stalin took on administrative roles, diligently building a loyal following and amassing influence within the party apparatus. He understood the importance of control over information, propaganda, and the levers of power.
He used his position to place allies in key positions, effectively building a network of patronage that would prove invaluable in the years to come.
Following Lenin's death in 1924, a power struggle erupted within the Bolshevik Party. Stalin, shrewd and calculating, outmaneuvered his rivals, Trotsky, Zinoviev, Kamenev, and Bukharin, one by one. He exploited their ideological differences, forged alliances of convenience, and used propaganda to discredit his opponents, painting them as enemies of the revolution. With his grip on power secure, Stalin unleashed a reign of terror that would decimate the ranks of the Communist Party and Soviet society as a whole. The Great Purge, as it came to be known, was a period of mass repression, show trials, and executions that lasted from the mid-1930s to the late 1930s.
Anyone perceived as a threat to my authority, whether genuine or imagined, was eliminated. Old Bolsheviks who had been instrumental in the revolution, intellectuals, artists, writers, military leaders, and ordinary citizens were swept up in the paranoia and bloodshed.
Millions were arrested on trumped-up charges of treason, espionage, and sabotage. They were subjected to torture, coerced confessions, and often executed without trial or sent to the Gulag, the vast network of forced labor camps scattered across the Soviet Union. Section 5. Industrialization at any cost. Driven by a desire to transform the Soviet Union into an industrial powerhouse, Stalin implemented a series of 5-year plans that aimed to rapidly collectivize agriculture and accelerate industrial output. These plans, implemented with characteristic brutality, aimed to modernize the Soviet Union and prepare it for what Stalin saw as the inevitable conflict with the capitalist West. Farmers were forced off their land and into collective farms, their harvests seized to feed the burgeoning industrial workforce. Private property was abolished and resistance was met with swift and brutal repression. The human cost of this forced collectivization was staggering. Millions died from famine, disease, and overwork. The agricultural sector, once the backbone of the Russian economy, was devastated, leaving a legacy of hardship and resentment. Section 6. Collectivization and its cruel realities. The policy of collectivization, while intended to modernize Soviet agriculture, had devastating consequences. Farmers, stripped of their land and livelihoods, resisted fiercely. They were labeled as enemies of the people and subjected to persecution, deportation, and execution. The disruption to traditional farming practices led to a catastrophic decline in agricultural output. The Soviet Union, once a grain exporter, faced widespread famine. The Ukrainian famine, known as the Holodomor, was particularly horrific, claiming the lives of millions through starvation. Despite the human cost, Stalin remained unwavering in his commitment to collectivization. He saw it as a necessary evil, a brutal but essential step in the transformation of the Soviet Union. He believed that the ends, a modern, industrialized, and powerful Soviet Union, justified the means, no matter how horrific. Section 7. Life and death under Stalin's rule. Life under Stalin was one of pervasive fear and uncertainty. The ever-present threat of arrest and deportation hung over Soviet citizens like a dark cloud. The NKVD, Stalin's secret police, was everywhere, monitoring conversations, intercepting mail, and instilling fear in the hearts of the populace. Despite the hardships and oppression, there were attempts to create a new Soviet citizen, loyal, hard-working, and dedicated to the ideals of communism. Education was reformed, literacy rates improved, and social mobility increased, at least for those deemed loyal to the regime. However, this progress came at a terrible cost. Freedom of expression was non-existent. Art, literature, and music were subject to strict censorship, forced to adhere to the dictates of socialist realism. Section 8. The Iron Fist, Stalin's leadership.
Joseph Stalin was a complex and contradictory figure. He was ruthless and unforgiving, yet capable of inspiring fervent loyalty. He was deeply suspicious, seeing enemies everywhere, real and imagined. He was a master manipulator, skilled at exploiting the weaknesses of others and bending them to his will.
Stalin's leadership style was one of absolute control. He tolerated no dissent, crushed any opposition, and demanded unquestioning obedience. He was a micromanager, involving himself in every aspect of government and policy. His paranoia and distrust were legendary. He surrounded himself with sycophants and yes-men, creating a climate of fear and suspicion within his inner circle. Section 9. World War II and Stalin's role.
The outbreak of World War II in 1939 presented a new challenge for Stalin and the Soviet Union. The Nazi-Soviet Pact, a cynical agreement between two dictators, had bought Stalin time but did little to alleviate his deep distrust of Hitler. When Hitler broke the pact and invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Stalin was initially caught off guard.
However, under Stalin's leadership, the Soviet people rallied to defend their motherland, enduring unimaginable hardship and sacrifice. The Red Army, initially battered by the Nazi onslaught, fought back with incredible tenacity. The Battle of Stalingrad, a turning point in the war, became a symbol of Soviet resistance. To Section 10, Stalin's final years and death.
As the war drew to a close, Stalin's grip on power seemed as firm as ever. The Soviet Union, having played a pivotal role in defeating Nazi Germany, emerged from the conflict as a global superpower. However, behind the facade of strength and invincibility, Stalin was a shadow of his former self. Years of paranoia, ruthlessness, and the immense strain of leading his country through war had taken their toll.
In 1953, at the age of 74, Stalin suffered a stroke and died. His death, like his life, was shrouded in secrecy and speculation. Some believe he died of natural causes, while others whispered of poison or assassination. Whatever the cause, his death marked the end of an era, a time of terror and transformation that left an indelible mark on the Soviet Union and the world. Section 11. A complex legacy. Remembering Joseph Stalin's legacy is a complex and controversial one. He is remembered as a brutal dictator responsible for the deaths of millions of his own people. The purges, the forced collectivization, the gulags, these are the enduring images of his reign, a stark reminder of the human cost of his ideology. Yet he is also credited with transforming the Soviet Union from a backward agrarian society into an industrial and military superpower. He led his country to victory in World War II, albeit at a staggering cost. Even today, decades after his death, Stalin's legacy continues to divide opinion. Some view him as a ruthless tyrant, while others see him as a strong leader who guided Russia through a tumultuous period in history. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, the allure of ideology, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity.